As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the dusty plains, Cowboy Jake tipped his weathered hat against the breeze. Beside him, his trusty German shepherd, Duke, pranced with the kind of energy only a dog with an untamed spirit could muster. They'd heard stories, yarns spun by old-timers down at the diner about a ghost town just off the beaten path, a place where time stood still and whispers danced on the wind. The abandoned house loomed large, its paint peeling like a sunburnt cowboy, and the sagging porch creaked as if it had stories of its own to tell. "Well now, Duke," Jake chuckled, "looks like we found ourselves a fine old mystery." Duke, ever the curious pup, let out a sharp whistle, one that echoed against the decaying walls. Suddenly, like a rain of letters from the heavens, an envelope fluttered down from the eaves, landing softly by Jake's boots. "What in tarnation?" he muttered, scratching his head. It was a strange sight, but then again, this was no ordinary house. With a mischievous spark in his eye, Jake knelt to pick up the envelope. "Let's see what secrets you've got up your sleeve, partner." With Duke by his side, they were ready to uncover whatever light-hearted hilarity and mystery awaited them in the shadows of this ghostly homestead. The sun dipped low behind the jagged hills, painting the ghostly outlines of an abandoned farmhouse in hues of gold and crimson. With each creak of the old wooden planks beneath his boots, the cowboy felt a shiver crawl up his spine, not from the chill in the air, but from the stories whispered by the walls. His trusty German shepherd, Paws, sniffed at the air, ears perked like radar dishes, picking up on something unspoken. As they stepped into the dimly lit parlor, a sudden gust of wind swept through, causing an old door to groan and shake in its frame. The cowboy's heart raced, partly from the mystery that lay within these weathered walls, and partly from the looming sense of mischief his four-legged companion always seemed to stir up. The spirits of this forgotten place were either restless or just waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to stir them awake. The cowboy leaned closer to a dusty old grandfather clock that ticked like a heart still trying to beat. He swatted at the cobwebs that hung like curtains, sparking Paws' curiosity as he began to bark, his voice echoing in the empty room. Just then, a nearby door swung open with a loud bang, startling both man and dog. The cowboy chuckled, his laughter filling the space where laughter had long been absent. "Well, I reckon someone's a mite testy." Paws, ready for anything, took a couple of cautious steps forward, tail wagging like a flag in a summer breeze. The air crackled with anticipation, a mystery waiting to unfold. And in that moment, their bond tightened, two souls united in the thrill of adventure. The cowboy knew there was more to this house than just dust and shadows. There was a tale yearning to be told. Moving cautiously from room to room, they stumbled upon an old envelope resting innocently on a cracked table, the only brightly colored thing in the house. The cowboy reached out, only to find it stuck fast to the surface as if it were anchored by some unseen force. With a grunt and a tug, he freed it, but not before letting out a whistle of surprise. Paws, ever the eager accomplice, erupted into a series of playful barks, his enthusiasm spilling over like sweet tea on a hot day. In an instant, the air seemed to tremble, and with it, a flurry of other envelopes cascaded from the shadows above, drifting down like leaves in autumn. The cowboy and Paws stared wide-eyed at the enchanting shower of paper, each envelope carrying a whisper of the past, and there was no telling what secrets they might unveil. As the envelopes settled around them, the cowboy couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. "Well, Paws, looks like we've hit the mother lode of ghostly correspondence." He lifted one of the envelopes, feeling its weight as if it carried a history all its own. The dog sat beside him, panting happily as the cowboy tore it open, revealing a faded letter that spoke of love lost and dreams deferred. They shared a glance, a moment woven with understanding. This house, steeped in sorrow, was not just a relic. It had been a home, a sanctuary. They were unearthing stories buried under layers of time, a comedic twist in their hunt for thrills. The cowboy, with his heart as big as the open range, felt the pull of those long-gone souls, as if they were beckoning him to continue their tale. With each envelope they opened, laughter mingled with the sense of aged wood and memories, and the atmosphere shifted ever so slightly. The cowboy read aloud, adding his own flair to the stories of yesteryear, while Paws wagged his tail in delight, as though he understood every word. They transformed the shadows of despair into a lively gathering, each letter inviting them to dance through time. The afternoon light filtered through grimy windows, casting playful patterns on the floor, illuminating the bond between man and dog, two adventurers reveling in the unknown. As they pieced together forgotten lives, the essence of companionship thrummed strong between them, the mysteries of the haunted house becoming a tapestry of laughter and heart. The past, once shrouded in darkness, was brought into the light, and the cowboy knew this was just the beginning of a delightful escapade. Dust danced in the afternoon sun as the cowboy leaned against the weathered porch railing, his hat tilted low over his brow. Beside him, Paws, his loyal German shepherd, sniffed the air, catching the scent of something peculiar, an invitation that had rustled through the aging pages of an old newspaper washed ashore from the nearby creek. The cowboy squinted at the crumpled piece of parchment, the handwriting a mix of elegant loops and frantic scrawls. Both the cowboy and Paws tilted their heads at the same time, curiosity ignited like a firefly in a jar. This wasn't just your ordinary letter. It was an invitation to the famed Wilkins estate, a place long whispered about in cowpoke circles for its ghostly residents and secretive happenings. The cowboy chuckled softly, adjusting his belt. "Ain't that a hoot, Paws? We're probably getting roped into a ghostly hoedown." With a playful bark, Paws seemed to agree, and together they set off down the dusty trail, the sun hanging low, casting long shadows that danced like specters behind them. As they approached the sprawling estate, its creaky wooden frame stood stoic against the backdrop of a blistering sunset, the windows like darkened eyes watching their every move. The cowboy couldn't help but feel that the old house had a personality all its own, demanding respect and maybe a little bit of humor. He'd heard tales of folks disappearing after visiting, but he just chuckled to himself. Ain't no spook gonna outsmart this cowboy and his trusty sidekick. Paws barked again, as if to say, "You bet your spurs." They ambled up the creaky steps, revealing an air thick with mystery and the faint scent of something sweet, yet rotten. Upon entering, they were greeted by an echoing silence, punctuated only by the cowboy's boots clomping against the hardwood floors and Paws' nails clicking with rhythm like a drummer keeping time. The air felt heavy, almost electric, as he scanned the dimly lit foyer adorned with dusty portraits that seemed to follow their every move. "Well, Paws," the cowboy said, tugging at his bandana, "looks like we ain't in Kansas anymore." Paws responded with a low growl, his instincts on high alert, giving the cowboy pause. "Let's not go barking up the wrong tree just yet," he advised, pulling out a flashlight that flickered like a firefly trying to light up the night. As they ventured deeper into the house, the atmosphere thickened, like the anticipation before a summer storm, and the cowboy couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was alive, holding secrets closer than an old friend. In the parlor, the walls seemed to whisper, recounting tales of yesteryears, draped in cobwebs and the scent of time. A comically oversized clock ticked slowly, each chime echoing through the air like an off-key singer at a hoedown. Paws' ears perked up at the sound of something skittering behind the walls, his fur bristling with excitement and perhaps a touch of fright. "Easy there, partner," the cowboy said with a chuckle, his heart racing both from the eeriness of their surroundings and the thrill of the unknown. "You're a brave soul. I reckon you'd take on a ghost if you had to." With a playful nudge, he laughed as Paws let out a feigned growl, their bond shining in the face of the peculiar atmosphere. They explored, the cowboy's heart as light as a feather despite the weight of the spookiness enveloping them, delighting in the oddities rather than fearing them. As they made their way towards the grand staircase, A sudden gust of wind rattled the old windows, sending a shiver down the cowboy's spine. "You feel that pause? I reckon that's just the house breathing," he said, straightening his posture with a grin. The German shepherd, ever the vigilant guardian, wagged his tail slightly, refusing to be rattled. Together they ascended the staircase, each step creaking under their weight like a chorus of forgotten voices. The cowboy took a deep breath, the mystery thickening around them like a stew simmering on the stove, rich with anticipation. "Let's see what treasures, or trouble, we can dig up," he whispered, the thrill of adventure igniting a spark in his heart. The two steadfast companions were not just exploring a haunted house. They were embarking on a journey that would test their courage, loyalty, and sense of humor in the face of the unknown, their hearts intertwined like roots of an ancient tree standing tall against the winds of time. With the sun hanging low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty porch, the cowboy squinted at the old rickety house that loomed before him. Its weathered boards creaked like a stubborn mule, and the paint peeled away like sunburnt skin, revealing a time-worn beauty that whispered of forgotten stories. Beside him, his loyal German shepherd, Duke, sniffed the air, ears perked up like a prairie dog on the lookout for trouble. The old tales of this place hinted at ghostly whispers and flickering lanterns, but all the cowboy felt was a tickle of curiosity winding its way through his bones. "Well, Duke, looks like we're fixing to find out what secrets this old shack's been keeping," he chuckled, tilting his hat back as he nudged the door open with a creak that echoed like a yodel in the still air. Inside, the smell of must and memories enveloped them like a worn quilt, and the cowboy's eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through dusty curtains. He stepped further in, the floorboards protesting under his weight as Duke trotted beside him, panting softly with excitement. A collection of knickknacks adorned the mantelpiece. A dusty horse figurine, an antique pocket watch stuck at 10:20, and a faded photograph of a woman in a flowing white dress. The cowboy leaned in closer, scratching his stubbled chin. "Wonder who she was, Duke? A ghostly beauty, or just a gal who had a fondness for odd hats?" Duke responded with a low growl, one that made the cowboy laugh. "You've got your own opinions, don't you?" With that, a sudden gust rattled the window, sending a flurry of dust into the air, igniting a tickle in the cowboy's nose that sent him reeling into a fit of sneezes. As they ventured further, the atmosphere thickened. Shadows danced in the corners like cheeky critters playing hide and seek. The old parlor was cluttered with remnants of a life once lived. An overturned chair, a half-finished quilt draped over a rocking chair, and an ancient gramophone that looked like it might still sing the blues. The cowboy, ever the jokester, turned to Duke with a lopsided grin. "What do you reckon? Should we throw ourselves a shindig, me, you, and a ghost or two?" Duke barked in agreement, his tail swishing with enthusiasm, ready for whatever mischief lay ahead. With a twinkle in his eye, the cowboy spotted a trapdoor near the fireplace, its edges caked with cobwebs that glimmered in the faint light. "Now that there looks like the ticket to an adventure," he declared, signaling Duke to remain close. Kneeling beside the trapdoor, the cowboy felt a mixture of thrill and caution. He pulled on the handle with a creak that resonated like an old cowboy's lament. The door swung open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness, where secrets were surely sleeping. "Looks like we may have found ourselves a treasure, maybe even some ghosts who've misplaced their sense of humor." A shiver of excitement danced down his spine as he peered into the abyss. Duke, ever the brave companion, nudged him forward with a playful nudge, ruffing softly as if to say, "Let's go, partner." Sensing the unbreakable bond between them, the cowboy felt a surge of reassurance. "All right, buddy, let's see what kind of trouble we can stir up down there," he whispered, the thrill of the unknown igniting their spirits. They descended into the shadows, the air growing cooler, wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. The cowboy flicked on a flashlight, its beams slicing through the darkness like a knife through butter, revealing an old storage room filled with forgotten belongings. a box of dusty boots, a faded saddle, and a small chest locked tight. "What do you think is in there, Duke? Gold coins? Or maybe just old letters?" he mused, chuckling softly. Duke's ears perked up at the sound of a faint shuffle in the corner, his instinct kicking in like a well-oiled machine. "Easy there, big fella. Could just be the wind playing tricks on us," the cowboy reassured him, though even he felt a tickle of unease. As they inspected their finds, the room seemed alive with whispers, echoes of laughter, sorrow, and perhaps a touch of mischief. The cowboy grinned at Duke, who had taken a defensive stance, ready for whatever adventure awaited them. "Whatever this place holds, partner, I reckon we're in for one heck of a ride." The wind howled like a pack of coyotes as the cowboy stepped onto the creaky porch of the old Wilkins place, a rickety homestead rumored to be haunted by the ghost of Old Man Wilkins himself. Beside him, Paws, the ever-energetic German shepherd, sniffed the air with his nose scrunched up, as if trying to uncover secrets buried deep within the rotting wood. The cowboy chuckled. "You smell anything, Paws? Or is that just the smell of old memories?" Paws let out a bark that echoed through the silent night, followed by a tail wag that sent a nearby loose shingle tumbling to the ground. It was just the two of them against the paranormal, a dynamic duo ready to face whatever spookiness lay in wait. As they stepped inside, the cowboy fumbled with the lantern, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls like a wild rodeo. Paws, ever the brave companion, took the lead, nose twitching as he darted from room to room, searching for anything that might hint at the house's storied past. The floorboards creaked in protest, sounding like a choir of disgruntled voices, and the cowboy couldn't help but grin at his loyal friend. "You think old Wilkins is just as scared of us as we are of him?" he joked, and Paws responded with an inquisitive tilt of his head, his ears perked up as if to say, "I ain't afraid of no ghost." In the parlor, dust bunnies galloped across the floor, and the cowboy stumbled upon an old music box that had been left behind, its intricate carvings hidden under layers of dust. With a flick of a finger, he opened it, and a haunting melody filled the air. Paws paused, his ears pricking up at the sound, and for a moment, the cowboy could have sworn he saw a fleeting shadow in the corner of his eye. "You hear that, buddy?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Paws let out a low growl, the kind that made the cowboy's hair stand on end. As the tune played on, the room grew colder, and a sense of nostalgia washed over them, as if the house itself was yearning to share its stories. Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed the front door shut, rattling the cowboy's nerves. Paws barked, bounding back to the doorway, his tail now standing straight like a flag at half-mast. "All right, partner, let's not go scaring ourselves out of our boots just yet," the cowboy said, trying to keep his bravado intact. Paws gave an encouraging bark, as if to say, "I'll protect you, don't worry." The cowboy couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here they were, two souls brave enough to tackle the unknown, while the remnants of the past clung to the walls like old wallpaper. With a deep breath, he stepped further inside, emboldened by the loyalty of his furry friend. As they made their way to the kitchen, Paws suddenly froze, sniffing at an unopened door that creaked slightly. The cowboy raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you think is behind there, boy? A midnight snack or a ghostly surprise?" With a gentle nudge from his nose, the door swung open, revealing a dusty pantry filled with jars of long-forgotten preserves. Paws stepped back, giving the cowboy a look that seemed to say, "You first?" The cowboy chuckled and opened a jar, only to be met with a cloud of stale air that made him cough. "Well, that ain't exactly what I was hoping for." Paws wagged his tail, his goofy expression lighting up the dim room as they shared a laugh. In that moment, amidst the dust and echoes of the past, their bond grew stronger, a testament to the adventures that awaited them, both in the haunted house and beyond. The sun hung low in the orange sky, casting long shadows across the dusty trail leading to the old house perched on the hill. Trees swayed like dancers, whispering secrets only the wind could catch. Cowboy, a rugged figure clad in worn denim and a weather-beaten hat, squinted at the creaking edifice. Beside him, Paws, his loyal German shepherd, sniffed the air with a nose for mischief. "Well, Paws, looks like we've found ourselves a right spooky puzzle," Cowboy mused, scratching his scruffy chin. The house loomed like a giant with a crooked smile, windows dark and empty, but the glint in Paws' eye told him they were in for a wild ride. With a chuckle, he added, "Bet this old barn's got more stories than a campfire at midnight." Pushing open the creaky front door, Cowboy and Paws stepped into the dimly lit foyer, where dust motes danced like spirits in the fading light. The air was thick with an earthy scent, tinged with a sweetness of forgotten memories. A portrait hung crookedly on the wall, depicting a grim-looking family who seemed to grumble at their intrusion. Paws sniffed the ground, ears perked, tail a-wagging. "What you smell, buddy?" Cowboy whispered, tiptoeing past an antique lamp that looked like it might topple any moment. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the upstairs, making Paws jump back, eyes wide. Cowboy chuckled. "Ain't that just like a ghost to knock before it strolls in?" With a wink, he added, "Let's go see what all the fuss is about, partner." As they climbed the creaky stairs, each step groaned like an old cowboy's back. Paws charged ahead, feeling brave despite the occasional shudder. At the top, they found a long hallway lined with doors, each one seemingly holding its own secrets. Cowboy looked down at Paws, who was sniffing in delight, tail wagging like a happy flag. "Looks like you found something, huh?" he teased, nudging the dog gently. The mutt paused, glancing at him with a look that could melt iron. They approached the first door, and Cowboy took a deep breath before pushing it open. What lay beyond was an old nursery, toys strewn about like a forgotten childhood. An eerie lullaby played softly from somewhere, sending shivers down Cowboy's spine. "If that ain't just a pinch unsettling," he chuckled nervously, "let's see if we can turn off that tune before it drives us batty." In the corner of the nursery, Paws began to bark wildly, his keen instincts on high alert. Cowboy, heart racing, scanned the room, spotting a dusty old music box sitting atop a shelf as if waiting for a brave soul to take notice. "You're a curious one, ain't you?" he said, chuckling. Carefully, he approached the box, and as he reached for it, the melody stopped abruptly, plunging the room into an eerie silence. A chill crept through the air, and Cowboy glanced at Paws, who had his hackles raised, as if sensing a presence that eluded his master. "Guess we're not alone in this here adventure," Cowboy murmured, half amused and half terrified. Just then, a gust of wind blew through the open window, rattling the toys and sending the music box tumbling to the floor, where it cracked open, revealing a hidden note. Cowboy picked it up, eyes narrowing. "Well, Paws, looks like we've got ourselves a clue." As Cowboy read the note aloud, he couldn't help but chuckle. "This here says, 'Find the hidden treasure beneath the willow's weep, or stay here forever, in shadows and sleep.'" Paws tilted his head, seemingly amused by the riddle. Cowboy knelt beside him, a gleam in his eye. "What do you reckon, partner? Shall we go chase us some roots at the bottom of that old tree?" With a bark of agreement, Paws bounded toward the door, his tail a blur. Together they headed back downstairs, the sense of light mystery hanging thick in the air. Cowboy felt a surge of warmth. The bond between him and his furry companion was stronger than fear. "You know," he said, grinning, "I've faced down rattlers and bandits, but following a ghost's treasure map, that's just downright adventurous." With laughter echoing through the haunted halls, they stepped toward the unknown, ready to uncover the secrets buried beneath the willow's weep. Under a sprawling moon that hung like a lasso in the star-studded sky, the cowboy led his faithful German shepherd, Paws, down a dusty trail that whispered tales of yesteryears. With every step, the creaking wooden boards of the old Anderson homestead loomed closer, a ghostly silhouette etched against the twilight. Legends spoke of a haunted family portrait that guarded the house, like a grumpy old coot on his front porch, and the cowboy's curiosity tickled his adventurous spirit. As he pushed open the door, it groaned a welcome that sent a shiver down his spine, while Paws sniffed the air, twitching his ears at the faint sound of laughter echoing from the shadows. Inside, the cowboy noticed the dust motes swirling like miniature constellations in the moonlight. The furniture, draped in white sheets, resembled specters trying to get cozy for an eternal sleepover. The aroma of cornbread and fried chicken wafted through the air, as if the house itself was trying to tempt them into staying for supper. Paws, with his nose to the ground, suddenly stopped in front of an old cuckoo clock that ticked with a rhythm eerily out of sync. "You hear that, partner?" The cowboy chuckled. "Sounds like the ghost is running on dog years." Paws tilted his head, letting out a soft bark as if to agree, his tail wagging with excitement for the adventure that lay ahead. As they ventured deeper into the house, the cowboy shared the story of the ghostly matriarch, rumored to appear every full moon, dressed in her Sunday best. "Folks say she's just looking for a lost supper biscuit," he quipped, imagining her gliding through the parlor in search of what was never meant to leave the table. Paws, ever the protector, kept close to his side, every now and then barking at an unseen presence, as if to say, "Don't worry, I'll keep you safe, even from biscuits." The cowboy laughed heartily, the sound warding off the chill around them. In that moment, they were not just a man and his dog, they were two brave souls, ready to unravel the mysteries of the past. The heart of the house began to beat stronger as they approached a heavy oak door labeled "Family Room." With a gentle push, the cowboy swung it open, revealing an old portrait adorned with dust and cobwebs. The faces within it seemed lively, almost mischievous, their painted eyes twinkling in the low light. "Well, I'll be," the cowboy exclaimed, drawing closer. "If them folks ain't just a tad spooky," Paws growled softly, his fur bristling as the cowboy leaned in for a better look. Just then, a gust of wind swept through the room, sending sheets fluttering like specters in a dance. The cowboy raised an eyebrow, a broad grin spreading across his face. "Don't worry, buddy, they don't bite," he reassured Paws, who barked playfully at the swirling sheets, as if daring them to come closer. With newfound courage, the cowboy began to explore the artifacts scattered throughout the room, sharing each tale with Paws as if they were old buddies gathered around a campfire. "This here's a locket that belonged to old Miss Anderson, said to grant good luck to anyone brave enough to wear it," he said, holding it up for Paws to inspect. The dog sniffed it carefully, then wagged his tail as if to say, "Let's try our luck." The cowboy chuckled, imagining their own adventures written in the stars. The night hadn't just been about uncovering local legends. It was about creating their own side by side in a house that breathed life into the past. With an adventurous heart and a loyal companion, the cowboy felt that no legend could stand in their way as they forged ahead into the lettered pages of their own story, ready to tackle whatever the night had in store. Dust swirled in the golden afternoon light as the cowboy and his loyal German shepherd Paws approached the old Whitaker homestead, a structure that appeared more ghost than house. Its weather-beaten wooden walls creaked like an old man telling tales of yore. For years, local folks claimed strange sounds echoed from within its dilapidated walls, whispers that danced with the wind and footsteps that padded softly across the creaking floors. The cowboy tipped his hat back, squinting at the dim windows that seemed to watch them with a hidden curiosity. With a quick tug on the leash, he said, "Come on, Paws. This place has got more stories than a barn full of hay." Paws barked in excited agreement. His ears perked up like radar dishes as they stepped closer to the house, the shadows of their uncertain fate flickering in the doorway ahead. As they crossed the threshold, the scent of aged wood and something else, a twinge of copper, filled the air, sending a shiver down the cowboy's spine. He shrugged it off, exchanging a knowing glance with Paws, who sniffed the floorboards with zeal. The cowboy felt a tickle of mischief in his gut, recalling how the townsfolk warned about the ghost of old Marjorie Whitaker, who supposedly had a penchant for pulling pranks on unsuspecting visitors. "Hope she's in the mood for a good laugh today," he chuckled, patting Paws on the head. Suddenly, a loud whistle echoed through the room, sharp and clear, making the cowboy's heart leap like a rabbit startled by a hawk. "Well, I'll be. Sounds like Marjorie's already at it," he exclaimed, a smile creeping across his face. Paws, undeterred, darted toward the source, tail wagging like a flag in a strong breeze. The whistle led them into a dilapidated sitting room where dust motes danced lazily in a beam of sunlight. An old phonograph stood in the corner, its record still spinning, the tune crackling out like an old man's voice recalling forgotten songs. The cowboy scratched his head, puzzled. "A record player? Ain't that a sight for sore eyes?" Paws sniffed around the phonograph, his nose twitching with curiosity. The cowboy approached, lifting the arm of the player, and found a note neatly folded beneath it. "Well, what's this?" he muttered, opening it to find a riddle, a playful challenge from the ghostly hostess. The riddle teased them like a playful breeze on a summer's day. "To find what you seek, make haste. Don't delay. In the kitchen, a secret awaits, they say." The cowboy looked down at Paws, who seemed to nod in agreement, as if ready for the next leg of their adventure. Making their way toward the kitchen, the floorboards protested with each step, their creaks harmonizing with the cowboy's cheerful humming. "Paws, you think old Marjorie's trying to lead us to buried treasure?" he joked, glancing down at his four-legged companion, whose tail was wagging faster than a windmill on a stormy day. The kitchen was a sight straight out of a tale told by the fire. Pots hung from the ceiling like ornaments on a tree, and the air still smelled faintly of cornbread, despite the years. As they searched, Paws suddenly froze, his ears perked up like alarms. The cowboy followed his lead, spotting a loose floorboard in the corner. "Now, what have we here?" he mused, kneeling down to pry it open, revealing a small, dusty tin box, locked tight as the heart of a grumpy old goat. With a grin on his face, the cowboy banged the box on the table, chuckling to himself. This could hold the secrets of the Whitaker clan or just a bunch of old knitting needles. Either way, it ain't gonna keep us from finding out. He turned to Paws, who sat expectantly, tongue lolling out in anticipation. The cowboy fished around in his pockets, finally producing a trusty old wrench. "Let's see what Marjorie left for us." With a few twists and turns, the box creaked open with a sigh, releasing a scent of musty memories. Inside lay a collection of old photographs and letters, each piece telling tales that made the cowboy chuckle and Paws bark in delight, their bond growing deeper with every mystery unveiled. Little did they know, old Marjorie was just getting started, her presence lingering in the air like a friendly ghost, eager to share more laughs and secrets before their day came to an end. The sun hung low in the sky, a paintbrush of gold and crimson casting long shadows over the dilapidated homestead that had seen better days. The cowboy, wide-brimmed hat tipped slightly forward, took stock of the rickety porch and sagging roof. Dust swirled in a lazy dance around him as Paws, his loyal German shepherd, sniffed the air, ears perked and tail wagging like a flag in a summer breeze. The wooden door creaked, protesting the presence of intruders, its peeling paint telling tales of laughter and heartache long past. With a nudge from Paws, the cowboy pushed the door open, revealing a dim interior where light struggled to penetrate the murky gloom. The air smelled of must and old wood, but under it all a strange, sweet scent lingered like memories that refused to fade. Inside, the cowboy's eyes adjusted, revealing remnants of a once vibrant life. Worn furniture draped in ghostly sheets and faded photographs staring blankly from the walls. Paws ventured further, paws clicking on the floorboards, his nose leading the way like a compass in the wild. A flicker of movement caught the cowboy's attention, and he chuckled nervously. Just the wind, or maybe the ghost of Old Man Jenkins, still looking for his missing cow. A raspy laugh echoed off the walls as the playful thought of Old Man Jenkins tickled his imagination. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Each creak of the house seemed to whisper secrets of its past, urging them deeper into the mystery that awaited them. As they moved deeper into the house, a chill raced down the cowboy's spine, but he brushed it off with a hearty laugh. "Ain't no ghost gonna rattle my spurs," he declared, glancing at Paws, who had stopped to inspect an old trunk. Curiosity piqued. The cowboy knelt beside his furry companion, gently prying the trunk open. Dust erupted like a mini tornado, causing Paws to sneeze adorably, his big eyes wide with surprise. Inside, they discovered an assortment of forgotten trinkets, an old harmonica, some rusted horseshoes, and a diary with pages as yellow as the sun. As the cowboy pulled out the diary, his heart swelled with possibilities. Now this here might just tell us the story behind this old place. His eyes danced with excitement. Paws, ever faithful, sat close, ready for whatever adventure lay ahead. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from above, causing both the cowboy and Paws to freeze. "Did you hear that, buddy?" he whispered, heart racing like a runaway horse. With a shared look of determination, they crept toward the staircase, the cowboy letting out a sigh. What's an adventure without a little scare, right? Each step creaked ominously underfoot, but the bond between the cowboy and Paws brought a layer of courage that wrapped around them like a well-worn blanket. As they reached the top, Paws stood tall, alert and ready, while the cowboy pulled out the harmonica, playing a cheerful tune to lighten the tension. It was a strange mix of thrill and laughter, the kind that only comes when you're knee-deep in a mystery and a little spooked. At the end of the hall, a half-open door beckoned them like an old friend. They exchanged grins, realizing that whatever awaited them on the other side was part of a tale they would tell for years, full of laughter and the thrill of the unknown. Paws wagged his tail enthusiastically as the cowboy pushed the door open, an old brass doorknob cool under his grasp. Inside, there were more dusty relics, but also the faintest sound of music, a lilting melody that seemed to rise and fall like the wind in the tall grasses outside. The cowboy chuckled again. "Well, if old Jenkins is throwing a hoedown, I reckon we ought to join in." With that, they stepped inside, ready to uncover more of the house's secrets, their laughter mingling with the echoes of the past, side by side, as always. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the old, weathered porch of the haunted house. The cowboy stood at the threshold, boots planted firmly on the cracked wood, while his trusty German shepherd, Gus, wagged his tail, his ears perked up like twin radar dishes. A flicker of hesitation danced in the cowboy's heart, a whisper of caution as he rubbed the brim of his hat. He glanced sideways at Gus, whose playful spirit seemed undeterred by the ghostly tales that swirled around this place like tumbleweeds in the wind. With a chuckle, the cowboy muttered, "What do you reckon, Gus? Haunted or just a heap of old stories?" The dog barked in response, bounding forward with a zest that reminded the cowboy of a spring calf, eager for adventure. Despite the creaks and groans of the house, something in Gus's enthusiasm coaxed the cowboy to take a step inside, the planks groaning beneath his weight like an old man waking from a nap. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of memories long gone. Gus sniffed every corner, his nose quivering as though trying to read the echoes of the past. The cowboy marveled at the peeling wallpaper and faded photographs that seemed to whisper secrets of lives lived and lost. He could almost hear the laughter of children playing and the clatter of boots against the floorboards, but those sounds were replaced by an eerie silence. With each creak of the floor, the cowboy felt the weight of history pressing on him, a mix of fear and curiosity making his heart race. "Ain't no ghost gonna scare me, Gus," he declared with a teasing bravado that masked his uncertainty. It was part of his charm and part of his folly to act tougher than he felt. As they explored room after room, the cowboy found himself drawn to a room at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar, as if inviting him in for a chat over a cup of coffee. Pushing the door open with a mighty shove, the cowboy was met with a sight that sent a chill down his spine and a chuckle up into the air. An old rocking chair sat in the corner, gently swaying back and forth, though there was no breeze to be found. Gus, ever the curious companion, trotted in, nose leading the way and tail wagging like a flag in a windstorm. The cowboy couldn't help but let out a nervous laugh, scratching the back of his head. "Well, ain't that a sight? Looks like we ain't the only ones who enjoy a good rocking chair, eh, Gus?" The dog sniffed at the chair, tail now a blur, as if he were convinced that perhaps a ghostly friend would emerge to share tales of yore. The cowboy stepped closer, peering into the gloom. With each creak of the old wood, he felt the weight of every ghost story he'd ever heard coming to life around him. Then, from the shadows, a soft whimper resonated, sending a jolt through the cowboy's bravado. "What in tarnation?" he gasped, glancing down at Gus, whose ears were pinned back, eyes wide and alert. The room buzzed with an unsettling energy, and for a moment, the cowboy considered retreating back into the sun-soaked safety of the porch. But as he looked into Gus's trusting eyes, he felt the bond between them tighten like a lasso. The dog's unwavering loyalty nudged the cowboy's courage back to the forefront. "Guess we can't back down now, partner," he said, gathering his nerve. With a hesitant step forward, he called out softly, "Hello? Anyone there?" The silence that followed felt heavy, yet somehow inviting, as if the house itself was breathing, alive with stories waiting to be told. The cowboy took a deep breath, adjusting his hat as he squared his shoulders. "Gus, we came here for a reason, didn't we?" he said, giving the dog a reassuring pat. "Let's see what this old gal is hiding." With Gus leading the charge, tail wagging, the cowboy ventured deeper into the heart of the haunted house. The shadows danced around them, but with each step, the cowboy felt a peculiar sense of belonging. Perhaps this house wasn't just a relic of the past, but a place where memories and laughter still lingered. As they moved from room to room, a playful breeze rustled through, making the curtains flutter like spirits celebrating a long-forgotten reunion. And in that moment, the cowboy knew that whatever lay ahead, he and Gus would face it together, partners in mystery and mischief, bound by a friendship forged in adventure. Dust danced in the warm sunlight, filtering through the cracked windows of an old forgotten homestead. The paint, once a cheerful shade of sky blue, hung off the walls in peeling swatches, revealing raw wood beneath. A creaking porch announced the arrival of boots crunching on splintered boards. Cowboy, with his weathered hat pulled low, glanced sideways at his trusty German shepherd Duke, whose tongue lolled lazily to one side. Together, they had weathered many storms, and the eerie ambience of the place raised the hair on Duke's back. The cowboy chuckled softly, recalling their first encounter in a similarly spooky barn. "Ain't no ghost round here that can scare us, boy," he muttered, but Duke's low growl suggested he wasn't so sure. With a wary glance, Cowboy pushed open the door, and it swung inward with a mournful groan, revealing dust motes that swirled like spirits caught in the air. Sunlight illuminated a living room frozen in time, filled with faded furniture, tattered quilts, and a dusty piano that seemed to sigh when disturbed. Duke, ever the protector, padded in first, his ears perked, tail on high alert. A sudden gust of wind rustled through the room, and the cowboy paused, feeling the chill creep along his spine. "You're just being dramatic," he grinned, nudging Duke playfully. The shepherd turned his head, eyes wide and soulful, as if to say, "I've seen things, partner." The cowboy laughed, knowing they were in for another adventure. As they explored, they stumbled upon an old portrait hanging askew on the wall, dust gathering like snow on the frame. Intrigued, Cowboy leaned in closer, recognizing the face of a grim-looking man with a scraggly beard, resembling the local legend of a long-lost prospector. Duke sniffed the air, his tail wagging hesitantly as if waiting for a cue. "What do you think, Duke? Ghostly gold or just a tall tale?" The dog sat, tilting his head, and Cowboy couldn't help but chuckle. The moment felt heavy with a hint of impending mystery, and with every creak of the floorboards, a sense of unease mixed with the thrill of discovery. Cowboy felt a bond tightening, knowing they were in this together, come what may. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Cowboy caught a flicker of movement, a shadow darting out of view. Duke barked, bounding after it like a bullet from a gun, instinctual and fierce. Cowboy tried to keep pace, half laughing, half yelling, as they tore through the house. The chase led them into a dusty kitchen, where a rickety table stood, its legs wobbling like a deer on ice. Duke skidded to a halt, sniffing around a cupboard that had swung ajar, revealing remnants of an old dinner long forgotten. "What have you sniffed out now, boy?" Cowboy mused, joining him. The crumbling biscuits and tins seemed to whisper secrets of yesteryears, and together they shared a moment, two explorers uncovering a tale from the past, leaving laughter in their wake. With a heart full of adventure and a hint of mischief, Cowboy leaned against the cool wall, chuckling at the unearthed treasures and surprises that awaited them. Duke, now resting at his feet, looked up with those wise, glimmering eyes that spoke volumes about loyalty and friendship. They were an unlikely team, a cowboy and his German shepherd, fated to brave the haunted corners of time and space. Cowboy reached down, scratching Duke behind the ears. "Looks like we're keeping this mystery alive, partner. Just you and me against the spirits of the past." The bond between them shimmered like the evening stars outside, ready to face whatever the wind whispered next, whether it be the chuckle of an old ghost or a playful gust that carried tales yet to be told. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue across the weathered boards of the old house's front porch. The cowboy leaned against the railing, boots propped up on the splintered wood, his ever-loyal German shepherd Rusty at his feet. The air was thick with the scent of wild sage and dust, a smell that tugged at the memories of long-forgotten summers. As the warm breeze rustled the dry leaves of the old oak tree, a faint creak echoed through the porch, sending a shiver down his spine. Not that he was one to scare easy, but tales of the ghostly figure that roamed the place at night danced in his mind. Rusty perked up, ears erect and eyes shining like two shiny marbles, as if he too sensed something peculiar. An old rocking chair swayed gently in the breeze, its motion almost hypnotic. The cowboy chuckled softly, recalling the last time he had tried to sit in it. He had underestimated the ferocity of its creaking and nearly launched himself into the flower bed. Rusty wagged his tail, as if to say, "You sure do have a way with furniture, boss." The cowboy tipped his hat back, grinning. "I reckon that chair's just trying to keep me on my toes." With that, the duo set off on a little exploration, taking the time to investigate the nooks and crannies of the porch. Every board they stepped on seemed to whisper stories from long ago, secrets waiting to be uncovered, and both man and dog felt the thrill of the unknown. Suddenly, Rusty's ears perked up again, and his gaze fixed on the front door, which was slightly ajar. The cowboy raised an eyebrow, sensing the palpable tension in the air. "What's got your britches in a twist, Rusty?" he asked, half amused and half curious. As if on cue, a gust of wind slammed the door shut with a bang, causing the cowboy to jump and Rusty to bark in surprise. The cowboy let out a hearty laugh, slapping his knee. "Well, I'll be. Looks like the house has a mind of its own. Maybe it's just trying to keep us from getting too nosy." Rusty, undeterred by the theatrics, trotted over to the door, sniffing at the edges. His instincts were sharp. He knew there was more to this house than met the eye. With newfound determination, the cowboy cautiously approached the door, Rusty at his side, standing tall and ready, as if he were the brave knight defending his castle. He pushed the door wide open, its hinges groaning like an old man getting out of bed. The dim light filtered through the dusty windows, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. The cowboy squinted, scanning the interior. "Well, I'll be a three-legged mule. This place looks like it hasn't seen the light of day in decades." Rusty bounded inside, nose to the floor, investigating every nook with the enthusiasm of a child on a treasure hunt. The cowboy chuckled. "You're acting like you just found a hidden stash of beef jerky, boy." Rusty's tail wagged faster, and the cowboy knew they were about to dive headfirst into another adventure. As they ventured deeper, the porch began to feel like a gateway to a forgotten world. The evening shadows lengthened, wrapping around them like a familiar old quilt. The cowboy picked up an old lantern hanging near the door, dust swirling off it as he wiped it clean. "Now, this could be useful if we're living like ghosts ourselves tonight," he mused, casting a glance at Rusty, who seemed to nod in agreement. "Stick close, Rusty. We'll unravel this mystery quicker than a rattlesnake can strike." Together, they stepped over the threshold, leaving the comfort of the porch behind. stepping into a realm where the past lingered in the air, ready to share its secrets with the bravest of hearts. And with each creak of the floorboards beneath them, the bond of the cowboy and his trusty German shepherd grew stronger, solidified by laughter, bravery, and the promise of the unknown. The sun hung low in the sky as the cowboy and his faithful German shepherd Hank approached the dilapidated ranch house. Paint peeled like sunburnt skin from the weather-worn wood, and a wild tumbleweed danced by as if it were auditioning for a part in a spaghetti western flick. The wind whistled a tune through the cracks, and Hank, his ears perked and nose twitching, seemed to whisper, "This place is a whole heap of trouble." The cowboy chuckled, giving Hank a gentle pat on the head. "Don't you worry, partner. We'll just suss out what's afoot before we hightail it back to the saloon." With a playful bark from Hank, the duo stepped onto the porch, the boards groaning beneath their weight, like an old-timer complaining about the weather. As they crossed the threshold, a sound broke the stillness, a high-pitched squeak that echoed through the hall like a banshee lamenting its lost youth. Each creak of the floorboards beneath their boots only intensified the mystery, Hank's fur bristling as he sniffed the air. "What's got your tail in a twist, boy?" the cowboy asked, trying to mask his own unease with a playful tone. It was then that he noticed the door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar, swaying ever so gently with a supernatural rhythm. With a wide grin, he decided to investigate, treating the eerie atmosphere like a raucous joke waiting for the punchline. "Come on, Hank. Let's see what kind of ghostly homebody we've got here." The cowboy pushed the door open with a grand flourish, only for it to let out a resounding squeak that sounded like a rusty hinge in need of grease. Hank jumped back, barking at the noise, as if expecting a phantom to leap out and challenge him. "Easy there, partner. Ain't no need to ruffle your feathers." The room inside was musty and dim, with shadows collecting in all the corners like gossipers at a country fair. Old furniture, covered in dusty sheets, loomed like forgotten stories waiting to be told. The cowboy squinted, searching for clues while keeping his trusty companion close. "What do you reckon, Hank? A treasure trove or a ghostly game of hide-and-seek?" With a playful nudge from Hank encouraging his curiosity, they ventured deeper into the shadows. As they rummaged through the forgotten remnants, Hank's keen nose led him to a dusty old trunk. It was locked tight, but the cowboy's unmistakable grin hinted at a mischievous idea brewing. "Let's give it a try, shall we?" he quipped, imagining all sorts of ghostly riches inside. With a swift kick, the trunk popped open, revealing a collage of faded letters and dusty trinkets. Hank sniffed the contents, tail wagging like a flag caught in a breeze. "Well, would you look at that? Looks like old Gertrude, the widow who lived here, had a penchant for love letters. Bet she wrote more than she could chew." The cowboy chuckled, picturing the lady's romantic escapades, while Hank seemed more interested in a chewed-up piece of rope hidden underneath the papers. They spent the next few hours unearthing layers of heartwarming correspondence and quirky bits of history, each letter filled with tales of lost love and laughter. Despite the eerie ambience, the atmosphere transformed as the cowboy regaled Hank with stories inspired by the letters, their bond deepening with every chuckle and tail wag. "You know, Hank, this place ain't so bad after all. Just a tad dusty and squeaky." The door let out another dramatic creak behind them, seemingly in agreement, causing Hank to raise an eyebrow. "Yeah, I see you over there, ghost." "We ain't afraid of you," the cowboy bellowed with laughter, and they both reveled in the lightness of the moment, the ghostly squeaks fading into mere echoes of a day filled with friendship and adventure. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the dilapidated ranch house that stood like a forgotten sentinel in the wild grasses. Dust motes danced in the fading light, swirling in the air like whispers from the past. The cowboy, with his weathered hat tilted low, pushed open the creaky door, the sound echoing through the dusty halls as if the house itself were groaning in surprise at this uninvited company. Beside him, his loyal German shepherd, Rusty, sniffed the air with enthusiasm, tail wagging like a flag in the breeze. A shadow flickered across the wall, and Rusty's ears perked up, the fur on his back standing at attention. "Guess that's our cue, buddy." The cowboy chuckled, his voice a mixture of bravado and curiosity. The echoes of laughter from long-lost gatherings seemed to reverberate through the house, wrapping around them like a warm embrace, inviting yet eerily nostalgic. As they ventured deeper into the house, they stumbled upon a room filled with old photographs and dusty furniture, remnants of lives once lived. Each step created a symphony of squeaks and moans, a ghostly orchestra that played alongside their rumbling laughter. The cowboy spotted a faded photo on the mantelpiece, a family gathered around in a moment of pure joy, their faces glowing with happiness. "Looks like they had some fun times," he murmured, nudging Rusty to investigate. Rusty, ever the inquisitive sidekick, bounded to the photo, brushing against it gently with his nose. Suddenly the floorboards creaked louder, as if a specter of the past had joined their exploration. The cowboy couldn't help but chuckle. "I reckon they're just curious about us, Rusty. Ain't no harm in that." His laughter echoed back, mixing with the house's memories, creating an odd comfort in the unease. Rusty, emboldened by his master's laughter, led the way to the kitchen, where pots hung like old friends sharing secrets. The cowboy grabbed a dusty apron off a hook, pretending to tie it around his waist with exaggerated flair. "Well, partner, what do you say we whip up a ghostly feast?" He grinned. Rusty tilted his head, clearly unimpressed by the idea of spectral cooking. However, as the cowboy mimicked stirring a pot, his antics coaxed a chuckle from the shadows. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistled through the cracks, rattling the old window panes and sending a few pots clattering to the floor. The cowboy jumped back, raising his hands in mock surrender. All right, I take back the ghost meal. Just don't go throwing pots at me, you hear?" Rusty barked in response, as if to say he wasn't in on this joke. Somehow their banter lightened the air, chasing away the chill of the unknown. In the main hall, the cowboy spotted an old phonograph, its surface coated in a layer of dust thick enough to write his name in. With a hopeful glance at Rusty, he wiped it clean, revealing its polished elegance beneath. "Let's see if we can't get some good tunes playing, eh?" He cranked the handle with a hearty grunt, and the haunting melody of a long-lost ballad filled the space, echoing through the empty rooms. Rusty's ears perked up, and he began to sway, as if coaxed by the rhythm. The cowboy couldn't help but laugh as he joined in, two unlikely dancers against the backdrop of history. As the music swelled, the warm timbre of the melody mingled with the echoes of laughter from the past, creating a moment that transcended time itself. It felt as if the spirits of the house were joining in, twirling and laughing along with them, all heart and humor. Just as the cowboy spun Rusty around in a playful dance, the harmony of laughter was interrupted by a faint sound echoing from the attic above. "What in tarnation was that?" the cowboy exclaimed, his eyes wide with a mix of dread and delight. Rusty, ever the brave companion, wagged his tail, ready for another adventure. "Looking for trouble, are we?" The cowboy ruffled Rusty's fur, a grin splitting his face. "All right then, let's go see what the old ghosts are up to." With a confident stride, they made their way to the rickety staircase, the old steps groaning beneath their weight. The echoes of laughter faded momentarily, replaced by the soft rustle of what could only be described as a playful spirit. Holding tightly to the banister, the cowboy chuckled. "One way or another, Rusty, I reckon we're in for one heck of a ride." Together, they approached the mystery above, hearts light and laughter lingering in the air, eager for whatever awaited them next. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the dusty old homestead in hues of gold and crimson, just like a cowboy's pride after a long day's work. The boards creaked underfoot as the cowboy stepped gingerly into the parlor, where shadows danced like waltzing ghosts. Beside him, Paws, the ever-watchful German shepherd, sniffed the air with a nose sharper than a rattlesnake's bite. The scent of dust mingled with something more sinister, like burnt sage and old secrets long buried beneath the floorboards. Paws' ears perked up, and he let out a low rumble, signaling something wasn't quite right. The cowboy chuckled, his trust in Paws' instinct unwavering. "Well, partner, looks like we got ourselves a mystery to unravel," he mused, a grin spreading across his sun-kissed face. The fireplace stood cold and empty, but it held tales of warmth and laughter from days gone by. A half-burnt log remained, its edges charred like the memories of good meals shared. The cowboy rummaged through the remains, recalling how his ma would tell stories by the fire, often warning him about specters who roamed the night. With a chuckle he quipped, "If this old place is haunted, I reckon they're just looking for a good old time." Just then, Paws dashed across the room, his paws thudding against the wooden floor like a drum roll. He found something, a faded, torn-out page clinging stubbornly to a hidden nook like a piece of gossip that refused to stay quiet. The cowboy knelt beside Paws, pulling at the jagged edge of the old paper. With a flick of his wrist, he freed it from its prison, revealing a map drawn in hasty strokes. "Oh, would you look at that? A treasure map!" he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling like stars in a midnight sky. The path twisted and turned like a coyote chasing its tail, leading from the old barn to the farthest reaches of the property. But the map's legend was in a script as crooked as a snake's belly, hinting at something hidden beneath the floorboards of the very house they stood in. "How's about that, Paws? We've stumbled upon a right fine adventure," he said, ruffling his canine companion's fur, who barked in agreement, his tail wagging like an old flag in the wind. Just as the cowboy flipped the paper over to study the back, a gust of wind blew through the open window, howling like a banshee in the night. The door creaked ajar, and Paws stiffened, his instincts kicking into gear. "Whoa there, boy! I reckon that wind's just trying to show us the way." The cowboy chuckled, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and a hint of trepidation. Yet he felt a comforting warmth knowing Paws was by his side, ready to face whatever lay ahead. With a long exhale, the cowboy made his decision. "Let's see if this map leads us to treasure or trouble," he declared, his voice steady, yet filled with the thrill of the unknown. Paws barked again, bounding toward the door as if to say, "Let's go." The duo stepped into the fading light, the map crumpled in the cowboy's hand, destination unknown but hope ever present. As they ventured deeper into the ghostly abode, they encountered old photographs, faces frozen in time, staring at them from the walls like forgotten friends. "Seems we ain't the only ones who used to live here," the cowboy remarked with a twinkle in his eye. Paws sniffed each corner, as if connecting with spirits long gone, the two of them weaving in and out of shadows, laughter and barks echoing off the walls. Even amidst the eerie atmosphere, their bond shone brighter than any ghostly apparition. "You and me, buddy, we're in this together," he said, and with that, the cowboy and Paws made their way toward the unknown, ready to unearth secrets of the past while forging memories of their own. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the weathered porch of the old homestead, the cowboy leaned against the creaky railing, tipping his wide-brimmed hat back to get a better look at the place. He sensed something eerie in the air, a mix of dust and mystery that was as thick as molasses. Next to him, his loyal German shepherd, Duke, sniffed the ground, his nose twitching with curiosity. The house had tales to tell, whispers of times long past hidden in its sagging walls. The cowboy chuckled to himself, imagining all the ghostly gossip the boards could spill if they could talk. "You think this old barn's got some secrets, Duke?" he said, ruffling Duke's fur. The dog let out a soft bark as if to say, "Let's find out." With that, they stepped forward, the floorboards groaning beneath their weight, echoing like distant laughter in the twilight. Inside, the atmosphere thickened. Every corner was draped in shadows that danced with the flickering light of a lantern the cowboy had brought along. The air felt charged, alive with a peculiar energy. Duke's ears perked up, and he sidled closer to the cowboy, who couldn't help but feel a tickle of excitement. Dust motes swirled in the air, illuminated like tiny stars in the dim light. As they wandered deeper into the house, they stumbled upon a parlor with old, tattered furniture that looked like it hadn't seen company in decades. "Well now, ain't this a sight for sore eyes?" the cowboy quipped, motioning to a dusty armchair that looked like it could use a good scare itself. Just then, The wind howled outside, and a loose window creaked ominously, causing Duke to leap back with a comical yelp. The cowboy burst out laughing. "Relax, partner. It's just the wind trying to join the party." As they ventured further, a strange noise echoed from the back of the house, like the faint strum of a guitar. "Did you hear that, Duke?" the cowboy whispered, his heart racing with a mixture of thrill and disbelief. The dog tilted his head, eyes wide as if saying, "Sounds like a hell of a jam session." With a grin, the cowboy decided they ought to investigate. They tiptoed down the narrow hallway, past ancient photographs of long-gone faces that seemed to watch with bemusement. Just as they reached the door to the old music room, it swung open with a creak, revealing a dusty guitar hanging on the wall, the strings vibrating slightly as if someone had just played them. The cowboy raised an eyebrow at Duke, who sniffed the air suspiciously, then gave a low bark, reminding the cowboy that they were not alone. "Guess we've found ourselves a ghost with a penchant for tunes," he mused, a mix of amusement and intrigue lighting his eyes. Duke, ever the protector, took the lead, sniffing the air as they entered the music room. The cowboy chuckled. "You sure are the brave one, aren't you?" The dog's fur bristled as he trotted further inside, the hairs on the back of his neck standing tall. As they explored, Duke's nose twitched suddenly, his gaze fixated on a darkened corner where an old phonograph sat, dust-covered but sturdy. The cowboy squinted at it, wondering if the ghost might be an old-time musician with unfinished business. "All right, old sport," he said. "Let's see if we can get this thing playing." With a gentle push, he turned the crank, and the phonograph sputtered to life, filling the room with a soft, crackling tune. As the music swirled around them, Duke's demeanor shifted from wary to relaxed. His tail wagged in sync with the ghostly melody. The cowboy couldn't help but smile, feeling the warmth of camaraderie that made the chill of the unknown seem less daunting. Suddenly, just as the last note faded, a gust of wind blew through the room, sending papers flying everywhere. Duke barked at the fluttering sheets, his instincts kicking in, while the cowboy burst into hearty laughter. "Looks like our ghost has quite the flair for the dramatic," he said, dodging a tumbling piece of parchment. Amidst the chaos, he noticed one particular sheet had landed at Duke's paws. Bending down, he picked it up, revealing it to be an old song written in faded ink. "Well, ain't this a gem?" he exclaimed, the excitement bubbling in his chest. "This could be the ghost's unfinished business. Maybe it needs a little help to sing its tale." Duke sat, ears perked, as if understanding the importance of this find. Together they decided right then and there they'd not only uncover the ghost's story, but also honor it. The cowboy's heart swelled with the bond he shared with Duke, knowing that no matter the mystery, they were in it together, ready for whatever adventure lay ahead. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dilapidated porch of the old Thompson place. Dust swirled lazily in the golden light as the cowboy adjusted his hat, eyeing the creaking front door with a mix of caution and curiosity. His loyal German shepherd, Paws, stood beside him, ears perked up like radar dishes, sniffing the air for any signs of mischief. With a gentle nudge to his partner, the cowboy shuffled forward, the floorboards moaning underfoot like a chorus of old ghosts. It was a place steeped in tales of lost fortunes and hidden treasures, but also whispers of restless spirits. Paws, sensing the tension, let out a low growl, his instinct sharp as ever. The cowboy chuckled softly, a grin breaking across his weathered face. "Easy, boy. Just some old wood and wind." But both of them knew, in the heart of that ramshackle house, there was more than just dust and echoes of the past. As they entered, the air inside felt thick, almost electric, buzzing with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Sunlight filtered through the grimy windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing like tiny fairies. Paws trotted in first, his nose to the ground, investigating every nook and cranny. With each cautious step, the cowboy followed, keeping a watchful eye on his companion. The duo stumbled upon a parlor with a faded piano in the corner, its keys yellowed with age. Paws paused, head tilted, as if he could hear music the cowboy couldn't. "Start playing and I'll join you," the cowboy quipped, chuckling at the absurdity of his own imagination. But Paws was no jokester. He seemed to sense something more. Suddenly the piano keys jangled, as if struck by unseen hands. The cowboy's grin faded, replaced by intrigue. "Now that's some spookiness I can get behind," he murmured, glancing at Paws, who stood firm, tail wagging in defiance of the supernatural. Driven by a mix of courage and curiosity, they moved deeper into the house. The walls seemed to breathe, creaking as if sharing old stories of heartache and laughter. An old rocking chair swayed gently in the corner as though welcoming them for a chat. "Guess the locals left their chairs behind," the cowboy joked, nudging Paws. The dog let out a playful bark, their bond evident in shared humor. Just then, a chill swept through the air, making the hairs on the back of the cowboy's neck stand up. He glanced at Paws, who stood at the threshold of the next room, staring intently. "What do you see, boy?" he whispered, drawing closer. Without a second thought, Paws bounded into the room, tail a flag of bravery. The cowboy followed, heart pounding like a drum, convinced that together they could face whatever mystery lay ahead. In the next room, they discovered an old trunk, dusty but sturdy, nestled beneath a faded quilt. The lock rusted but intact. It beckoned to them like a treasure map in a pirate's tale. Paws pawed at it, his nose twitching with excitement as if saying, "Come on, let's see what's in there." The cowboy chuckled, feeling the surge of adventure igniting within him. "All right, partner, let's crack this code." With a bit of elbow grease, he worked the lock free, the sound of metal clinking echoing in the eerie silence. As the lid creaked open, the smell of aged leather and forgotten memories wafted out. Inside lay an array of dusty journals and a few trinkets, a locket, a rusty pocket watch, and a scrimshaw piece depicting a legendary figure from the West. The cowboy and Paws exchanged a wide-eyed glance, both sensing the weight of history resting within the trunk. "Looks like we've struck gold," he exclaimed, excitement bubbling over, knowing they had just uncovered a slice of the past. Yet just as they began to sift through the treasures, a sudden chill swept through the room, sending a shiver down their spines. Paws barked wildly, standing his ground like a true protector as a shadow flitted past the window. The cowboy's heart raced, adrenaline coursing, but he couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. Who knew ghost hunting could be so entertaining? He quipped, trying to lighten the mood. Paws, ever vigilant, moved closer to him, the bond between them solidifying in that moment of mild panic. In the midst of uncertainty, the cowboy reached down, ruffling his dog's fur, grateful for their partnership. "Whatever's out there, we'll face it together, right?" With a resolute nod from Paws, they prepared to confront the unseen mystery. The old Thompson place had plenty more secrets to share, and the cowboy knew, with Paws by his side, they were ready to unravel every last one. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dusty plains, Cowboy paced the creaky wooden floor of an old homestead. The house stood like a weathered sentinel, its windows darkened by years of neglect, whispers of the past dancing on the wind. Paws, his loyal German shepherd, stood by his side, ears perked and tail wagging like a feather in a breeze. The duo had heard tales swirling around town about a hidden room, a place where secrets lay buried deeper than the roots of the gnarled oak tree in the yard. Cowboy tipped his wide-brimmed hat, his curiosity piqued as he scratched his stubbled chin. "What do you reckon, Paws? Ready to rustle up some ghosts?" With a bark that echoed like a playful chuckle, Paws led the way, tail a-wagging as if he sensed the adventure that lay ahead. They began their search in the main room, which was filled with antique furniture covered in dust, thicker than a pancake. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an old-timer grumbling about the cost of hay. Cowboy rummaged through an old trunk, revealing a collection of moth-eaten quilts and a rusty lantern that blinked like a firefly in the twilight. Paws, with a nose for trouble, sniffed around a faded portrait hanging crooked on the wall. His eyes widened, and he let out a low growl, not of fear but of determination. Cowboy stifled a chuckle, patting his trusty companion. "Looks like you found something, partner. Let's give this old ghost a run for his money." As the cowboy adjusted the picture frame, he felt a cold draft sweep through the room, sending a shiver down his spine. "Well, ain't that just the welcoming committee?" he exclaimed, his heart racing with both fear and excitement. Following the breeze, the two ventured deeper into the house, where faded wallpaper peeled like forgotten promises. Every shadow seemed to dance, and Cowboy's heart raced like a wild stallion. Paws, ever vigilant, led the way, guiding Cowboy towards a narrow staircase that spiraled down into darkness. "I reckon we should have brought a lantern, but what's life without a little risk?" he joked, trying to lighten the mood as he flicked on his trusty flashlight. They descended into the dimly lit space below, every step echoing like a ghostly laugh. The air grew cooler, swirling around them like a gentle evening breeze. Cowboy could almost hear the house whispering secrets, old stories yearning to be uncovered. Paws stopped, sniffing the air as if he'd caught wind of something otherworldly, and Cowboy knew they were on the brink of discovering something truly remarkable. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a door, mysteriously ajar, inviting them into the unknown. With a soft push, it creaked open, revealing a room bathed in an eerie glow that felt like stepping into another world. Dust motes danced like tiny stars, and in the center stood an old trunk, polished yet ancient. Cowboy's heart raced as he motioned for Paws to stay close. "Looks like we struck gold, buddy," he whispered, the thrill of adventure coursing through his veins. As they approached, the trunk's latch lifted slowly, as if the air itself had unlocked it. Inside lay a collection of handwritten letters, yellowed with age, hinting at the lives once lived here. Cowboy carefully picked one up, feeling the weight of history in his hands, while Paws sat beside him, eyes bright with anticipation. As Cowboy read the letters, laughter bubbled up like a spring in the desert, each tale revealing the quirks and foibles of the family who once inhabited the house. Memories of laughter, love, and a few ghostly mishaps emerged like fireflies on a summer evening. "Well, Paws, I reckon we just found ourselves a treasure trove of yesteryears," he exclaimed, his voice rich with amusement. Paws tilted his head, as if he understood every word, his tail wagging in rhythm with Cowboy's excitement. The pair shared a peaceful moment, surrounded by history, laughter echoing through the ages. With a heart full of stories and a canine companion at his side, Cowboy knew this place was more than just haunted walls. It was a reminder of the bonds that time could never sever, not even in the face of the mysterious unknown. In the fading light of the sunset, the old house creaked like a worn-out saddle. The cowboy swung open the door, its hinges moaning like a long-forgotten ghost. Dust motes danced in the golden beams, and Paws, his German shepherd, sniffed the air with that eager, curious look that melted the cowboy's heart. With a playful nudge, Paws urged him forward, tail wagging like a flag, ready for whatever peculiarities lay within. The atmosphere was thick with mystery, as if the walls themselves held whispers from the past, tales of laughter and sorrow echoing in the dimness. Clutching his trusty hat tight, the cowboy stepped inside, the old floorboards groaning beneath his boots as if warning him to tread carefully. Within the clutter of the parlor sat an antique writing desk, cloaked in a shroud of dust, illuminated by a beam of twilight. The cowboy approached, his fingers gliding over the surface, unearthing a forgotten envelope sealed with a faded wax emblem. Paws, ever the eager assistant, leapt up next to him, sniffing at the envelope with a determined curiosity. The cowboy chuckled. "What say we crack this mystery open, furball?" The envelope contained a note written in jagged script, a riddle of sorts, hinting at a hidden treasure that once belonged to the house's former owner. With heart racing, the cowboy felt the thrill of adventure ignite, not just for himself, but for Paws too, who seemed to understand the weight of their discovery. Like a well-oiled machine, they began to piece together the clues that danced in the shadows. The cowboy's deep voice echoed through the empty halls as he read the riddle aloud. "When the sun sets high and shadows grow long, the whistle of the wind carries secrets along." He paused, looking at Paws, who cocked his head in a comical fashion, as if pondering deeply. "Guess that means we gotta figure out where the wind's blowing, huh, buddy?" Together, they wandered to the back porch, where the wind waved through the trees like a ghostly conductor, orchestrating a symphony of rustling leaves. There, they discovered a broken-down windmill, its once proud blades now decaying, but something in the cowboy's gut told him it wasn't just junk. With a hearty laugh and a mischievous glint in his eye, the cowboy hoisted himself up onto the weathered wooden platform of the windmill. Paws, not one to be left behind, jumped up beside him, both of them scanning the horizon for any sign of treasure. Just as the last rays of sun dipped below the hills, the cowboy let out a whistle, a melodic sound that pierced the stillness, beckoning whatever secrets lay hidden. Paws tilted his head, letting out a playful bark as if to answer back. The wind howled, and in that moment, a second envelope fluttered down from the old windmill's rafters like a wayward leaf caught in a breeze, landing squarely at their feet. The cowboy grinned, excitement bubbling up like a fresh brew of coffee. As they opened the new envelope, the cowboy couldn't help but appreciate how life felt like a grand, whimsical dance filled with surprises. The note inside spoke of an old lantern hidden beneath the floorboards of the very room they started in, said to light the way to the ultimate treasure. "What do you think, Paws? A treasure hunt inside this haunted old house?" The dog's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he pawed playfully at the cowboy's boot. Their bond was stronger than a mule's kick, woven together by laughter and the thrill of the unknown. With a final determined nod, they headed back inside, ready to dig through dust and shadows, not just for treasure, but for the adventures that made life worth living. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving a twilight glow that wrapped around the old Victorian house like a tattered quilt. Dust motes danced in the air as the cowboy leaned against the splintered porch railing, his faithful German shepherd, Duke, sniffing at something interesting in the grass below. There was a peculiar buzz aloft as the wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of the past. The cowboy's eyes squinted against the shadowy silhouette of the house, its peeling paint and creaking boards offering tales of yore. "Hope you're ready for a night of spooks, Duke," he chuckled, ruffling the dog's fur. Duke wagged his tail, as if to say he'd take on anything that dared to cross their path. His ears perked at the sounds of rustling leaves and distant hoots of an owl. As the night deepened, the distant rumble of thunder rolled in like a freight train, pulling a curtain of dark clouds across the sky. Rain began to fall, first as a drizzle, then as a hearty downpour, drenching the old wooden porch. The cowboy pulled his hat low, chuckling at the irony of a haunted house on a stormy night. Duke, more excited than ever, bounded into the rain, his paws splashing through puddles as if he was shaking off the ghosts of the house that lingered in the air. "Look at that fella go!" The cowboy laughed, half amused, half exasperated. The rain was alive with possibilities, and somewhere deep down, the cowboy sensed it might wash something mysterious loose tonight, something otherworldly hiding among the rafters. Just then, a flicker of movement caught Duke's keen eye. The dog stopped mid-splash, ears pricked, and gave a low growl that rumbled like distant thunder. The cowboy followed Duke's gaze to an upper window that still glimmered ominously under the storm's glow. "You see him too, boy?" he whispered, his heart racing a tad faster than normal. Water dripped from the cowboy's hat as he edged closer to the house, the rain pounding like a restless drummer. The laughter of the storm seemed to mingle with hushed voices from within, a chorus of phantom whispers, beckoning and teasing. The cowboy took a deep breath, feeling the electric charge in the air, while Duke stood firm, his tail a banner of bravery. Together, they were ready to unveil whatever magic the storm brought. With a foot in the door, the cowboy and Duke stepped into the dimly lit foyer. The fragrance of damp wood and something sweetly earthy filled the air, and the shadows danced across the walls like playful spirits. "What do you reckon, Duke?" he murmured, looking around at the faded portraits of stern-faced folks who seemed to regard them with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Duke, ever the brave protector, trotted forward, sniffing at corners where the rain had been less forgiving. The cowboy chuckled softly. "You're right. We ought to see what's cooking in this old house." As they ventured deeper, a gentle drip, drip, drip resonated from a nearby room, pulling them toward the origin of the sound. Each step echoed their heartbeats, a rhythmic anticipation that promised a revelation. As they entered the parlor, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with an electric energy that sent shivers down the cowboy's spine. The rain had eased into a gentle patter against the window, and the room appeared almost alive. Duke froze, staring at a flickering candle on the mantel that somehow flickered despite the lack of wind. "Well, would you look at that?" the cowboy exclaimed, hardly able to suppress his wide grin. "Seems like we've got a bit of magic to unravel after all." With the storm outside gradually calming, it felt as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for them to uncover its secrets. The cowboy and Duke exchanged a knowing glance, a shared resolve shining in their eyes. No matter the mystery, they were in this together, bound by laughter, loyalty, and the promise of adventure under a magical rainfall. A crisp autumn breeze rustled through the leaves as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the dilapidated porch of the old McAllister homestead. With each creaky step, the cowboy felt the weight of stories long forgotten hanging in the air. Beside him, his loyal German shepherd Duke trotted anxiously, ears perked for any sounds. This ramshackle house had been whispered about in town, a treasure trove of tales and maybe even hidden gold. "Well, Duke, if a ghost pops out of nowhere, you best be ready to protect your old man," he chuckled, patting the dog's head. Duke barked softly in response, as if to say, "Let's find that treasure before the ghosts do." The cowboy tiptoed through the front door, the hinges creaking like an old rooster at dawn, revealing a dim room filled with dust and memories. As they explored the parlor, cobwebs draped over dusty furniture, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. The cowboy swept a finger through the filmy haze, revealing an old wooden chest tucked beneath a moth-eaten quilt. His heart quickened. Perhaps his wildest dreams were about to come true. "What do you reckon is in there, Duke? Diamonds, gold bars, or maybe a six-shooter from the Wild West?" He leaned down, winking at Duke, who responded with a playful growl, his tail wagging like a windmill in a storm. With a boot heel, the cowboy nudged the chest, and it swung open to reveal a jumble of old trinkets, rusty horseshoes, yellowed letters, and an old harmonica. Duke sniffed tentatively, and the cowboy laughed. "Well, so much for riches. Seems like we struck it rich in nostalgia." Determined not to give up, the cowboy rummaged through more rooms, his curiosity piquing as the sun dipped lower, casting eerie shadows that flickered like ghosts dancing in the dark. Duke led the charge, sniffing out corners where old photographs lay scattered, faces peering out from the sepia-toned past. The cowboy chuckled at the sight of a gray-haired man holding a lasso, his expression fierce yet playful. "Now that fella looks like he could rope the moon," he joked, glancing at Duke. "What do you think? Fancy a bit of moon roping ourselves?" With a bark, Duke seemed to agree, tail wagging faster. As they ventured into the kitchen, a sudden chill swept through the room, and the cowboy paused, glancing at Duke, who had stopped dead in his tracks, fixated on a shadow flickering in the corner. "Looks like we ain't alone, buddy," the cowboy whispered, a mixture of thrill and trepidation sparking in his heart. He reached for Duke's collar, squeezing it gently as he approached the source of the disturbance. "If it's a ghost, I reckon we're well armed with wit." They stepped closer, and suddenly the shadow darted away, revealing an old painting that had fallen from the wall. The cowboy chuckled again, shaking his head. "Ain't that a sight? A portrait scared of its own frame." Duke sniffed the ground where the painting had rested, his nose twitching. "You think it's a sign, Duke? Maybe the ghost wants us to find something?" Duke barked enthusiastically, tail wagging like a flag on the 4th of July. Just when the cowboy thought the adventure was winding down, Duke started digging at a loose floorboard, enthusiasm bubbling like a pot on a hot stove. "What have you found there, buddy?" The cowboy knelt beside him, heart racing with excitement. As Duke unearthed the board, a glint of metal caught the fading light. The cowboy carefully pried it open, revealing a small, rusted box. With a swift flick of his wrist, he opened it, and there, nestled inside, was a handful of golden coins, their shine as bright as Duke's eyes. "Well, I'll be. We hit the mother lode," he exclaimed, wrapping his arm around Duke in a celebratory hug. The haunted house, once a place of mystery, now held the promise of adventure and discovery, and as they stepped back into the fading sunlight, the bond between the cowboy and his faithful companion deepened, a treasure far more precious than gold. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty porch of the old Johnson homestead, a place steeped in local lore and whispered tales. Cowboy leaned against the splintered wood, a half-finished glass of sweet tea perched in his hand, while Paws, his loyal German shepherd, sniffed the ground curiously. The locals had spoken of eerie sounds emanating from the crumbling attic, tales of a long-gone family that might still be roaming the rooms. With a chuckle, Cowboy pulled his hat down, a twinkle in his eye, and said, "Well, Paws, looks like we've got ourselves a little mystery to solve." Paws responded with a soft woof, his ears perking up as if he understood every word uttered. The duo was inseparable, partners in crime and adventure, and today's escapade promised to be another chapter in their growing saga. Pushing open the creaky door, they were greeted by a gust of stale air that seemed to carry the whispers of years past. Dust particles danced like tiny stars in the sunlight streaming through the cracked windows. Cowboy stepped inside, boots thudding softly against the wooden floor, while Paws hesitated, nose quivering. "Don't worry, boy. It's just a bit of old dust and some ghostly chatter." With a reassuring pat, Cowboy ventured further, peeking into rooms decorated with faded wallpaper and cobweb-laden corners. Paws, ever the brave companion, followed closely, his tail wagging despite the odd creaks and groans echoing around them. Each room held secrets trapped in time, and soon they discovered a dusty old piano, its keys coated in neglect, yet still capable of producing a haunting melody when pressed. As Cowboy struck a few notes, the sound resonated through the empty house, creating an eerie atmosphere. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from above, making Paws leap and bark, his fur standing on end. "Probably just the wind," Cowboy said, though he wasn't quite convinced. With a mixture of humor and bravery, he declared, "Let's go check it out, partner." As they climbed the rickety staircase, each step creaked ominously under their weight. Paws stayed close, his instincts alert, while Cowboy waved a hand in jest. "If we run into a ghost, I reckon we'll have to ask him to help with the chores." The bond between them was palpable. In the face of the unknown, they found comfort in each other's presence and playful banter. Reaching the attic door, Cowboy paused, a grin creeping across his weathered face. "All right, buddy, on the count of 3. Paws sat down, tilting his head as if weighing the gravity of the moment. 1, 2. With a swift kick, Cowboy flung the door open, revealing a room filled with old trunks and forgotten treasures. Instead of a ghost, a small, dusty cat darted across the room, sending Paws into a playful frenzy, chasing the creature while Cowboy burst into laughter. "Well, I'll be. Looks like we've got ourselves a new friend." The air lightened and the tension melted away, replaced with the joyous sight of Paws bounding around, tail wagging furiously. The attic was no longer spooky. It was filled with life and laughter, a testament to the unbreakable bond forged in their adventures. As the sun began to set, casting warm hues across the sky, Cowboy and Paws made their way back down, the day's mystery unraveling into a heartwarming memory. Cowboy leaned against the old banister, smiling down at Paws, who was still chasing imaginary phantoms. "You know, boy, it's not always about the ghosts we chase, but the friendships we find along the way." Paws promptly flopped down at Cowboy's feet, panting happily as if to say he agreed wholeheartedly. They stepped out into the cool evening air, laughter trailing behind them like a warm breeze. With every adventure, their bond grew deeper, a cowboy and his dog living life to the fullest, tackling the mysteries of the past while weaving tales of their own. Together, they turned haunted houses into homes filled with laughter, love, and an unshakable friendship. The sun dipped low over the old ranch house, casting elongated shadows that danced like restless spirits on the weathered porch boards. Cowboy, with his trusty Stetson pulled low, nudged open the creaky door, revealing the darkened interior. Dust motes swirled in the fading light as Paws, his German shepherd, sniffed the air with an enthusiasm only a dog could muster. The scent of aged wood and something peculiar, almost like sweet hay, filled the space. "I reckon we're in for a bit of adventure, partner," he chuckled, his voice a deep rumble echoing in the stillness. As they stepped inside, the floorboards protested underfoot, creaking in a way that sent a shiver down Cowboy's spine. "Ain't no ghost gonna scare us off," he declared defiantly, glancing down at Paws, who wagged his tail as if to say, "Let's get to it." As they ventured deeper, the house revealed its secrets in slow drips like a leaky roof after a hard rain. A faded photograph hung crookedly above the fireplace, depicting a family long gone, their eyes following the pair with an eerie intensity. Cowboy leaned closer, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "You see that, Paws? Looks like they were in the middle of something mighty important." Paws tilted his head, ears perked up, as if he too sensed the weight of the moment. Just then, an unexpected sound, a soft thud from the upstairs, sent both of them jumping. In an instant, Cowboy grinned, his adventurous spirit ignited. "Well, that ain't no ghost, just the wind, right?" he quipped, though a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Paws, undeterred, bounded toward the staircase, tail wagging with a mix of excitement and curiosity. The stairs creaked ominously, each step echoing through the house like distant thunder. Cowboy's heart raced in synchrony with Paws' eager paws as they made their way to the second floor. The hallway was lined with doors, most of them closed tight. "Which one you think hides the treasure, buddy?" Cowboy asked, playfully nudging Paws with his hip. The dog responded with a bark, and without hesitation, he led the way toward the door at the end of the hall, its paint peeling like an old wallflower at a dance. Cowboy, fueled by a concoction of courage and curiosity, pushed it open with a creak that sent a shiver up his spine. Inside, he found a dusty bedroom, sunlight filtering through a cracked window, illuminating an old trunk sitting forlornly in the corner. "Now, this looks more promising than a pot of gold," he exclaimed, kneeling beside it. As he pried open the trunk, Paws sat close, watching with an eager gleam in his eyes, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. Inside, layers of moth-eaten quilts revealed an assortment of old trinkets, a rusted sheriff's badge, letters yellowed with age, and a faded harmonica that Cowboy couldn't resist picking up. "Well, Paws, looks like we found our ghost's belongings," he laughed, blowing a half-hearted tune that echoed bleakly in the empty room. Paws tilted his head, ears flopping comically as he listened, then let out a sequence of barks, as if trying to harmonize with the tune. Suddenly, Cowboy's laughter died down as he spotted a hidden compartment beneath the trunk's false bottom. "Now, what do we have here?" he murmured, intrigued as he reached inside, the old wood squeaking against his pull. The compartment revealed a dusty journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. Cowboy opened it gingerly, revealing pages filled with the flowing script of someone long gone, the jottings of a rancher, detailing dreams, heartaches, and the ghost stories that had woven themselves into the fabric of the house. "Looks like this old place has seen more than its share of stories," he mused, glancing sideways at Paws. The dog sat unwavering, eyes locked on his master, ready for whatever lay ahead. Cowboy's heart swelled with a sense of purpose. Together, they'd unravel the mystery of this haunted homestead and bring its secrets to light. With a fresh resolve, he tucked the journal under his arm. "Let's see what else this place has to share, old friend." As they stepped back into the hallway, laughter mingled with echoes of the past, and the adventure between man and dog continued to unfold like the pages of a cherished tale. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the creaky wooden floorboards of the old Thompson homestead. The cowboy, with his weathered hat tipped low, squinted into the dusky gloom. His faithful German shepherd, a sturdy creature named Hank, stood at his side, ears perked and tail a rhythmic metronome of excitement. Rooftops silhouetted against the fiery sky seemed to whisper secrets as they entered the house, dust motes dancing like little spirits in the fading light. "Well, Hank," the cowboy said, his voice a blend of mischief and determination, "looks like we're in for a wild night." He flicked on his flashlight, beams slicing through the shadows like a lasso thrown in a rodeo. Every flicker of the light revealed remnants of a forgotten life. Old photographs in cracked frames, cobwebs draping over furniture like faded lace, and a faint chill that hung in the air, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Their footsteps echoed softly, a rhythm of the present weaving through the echoes of the past. A sudden noise, a soft thump from the upstairs, sent Hank's fur bristling. He let out a low growl, a sound more playful than threatening, as if he was just daring whatever it was to show itself. The cowboy chuckled under his breath, reassuring his companion, "That's just the wind, buddy. Or maybe old Thompson himself looking for a good game of cards." With a nudge to Hank's flank, they ventured toward the staircase, the wood creaking underfoot like a restless old man. Each step into the unknown was filled with a sense of adventure, each creak and groan an invitation to uncover the house's long-buried stories. As they climbed, the cowboy felt a tug on his heart. This was no ordinary house. It was a patchwork quilt of memories, stitched together by the laughter, tears, and the occasional ghostly presence of its former inhabitants. Reaching the darkened hallway, the cowboy raised his flashlight, illuminating the faded wallpaper and the silhouette of a door at the far end. "What do you think, Hank? Should we knock?" he quipped, giving Hank a playful nudge. The dog tilted his head, as if pondering the question with all the seriousness of a sage. They approached the door, and the cowboy felt a shiver run down his spine. Was it the chill in the air or the anticipation of the unknown? He took a deep breath and swung the door open with a creak that echoed through the hallway. Inside the room, the air thickened with a sense of presence, a soft sigh that seemed to dance through the dust. Hank barked playfully at the corner, tail wagging, as if he had just spotted a long-lost friend. The cowboy chuckled. "Looks like we've got company after all." The laughter bounced off the walls, an invitation to whatever spirit lingered there, a light-hearted reminder that even in the face of the uncanny, joy could still find a foothold. As they stepped into the room, a sudden gust of wind flung the curtains open, revealing a flickering candle on the desk. The flame flickered wildly, as though trying to convey a secret message from beyond the grave. The cowboy squinted, half expecting to see a ghostly figure at the desk, but it was merely a collection of dusty old letters, yellowed with age. "What have we here?" he murmured, stepping closer. Hank sniffed the ground, his nose twitching with curiosity. The cowboy picked up a letter, the handwriting elegant yet shaky, words flowing like the river on a summer's day, but filled with haunting undertones. "Seems old Thompson had himself a love story," he mused, flipping through the brittle pages. Or maybe it was just a bunch of complaints about the neighbors. Either way, it's got some spirit to it. The laughter echoed in the room, a gentle reminder that the past holds as much humor as it does sorrow, a connection between worlds that felt as real as the bond he shared with Hank. Just as the cowboy began to piece together a story of romance and heartbreak, a distinct chill swept through the room, and Hank's barking intensified. A figure appeared behind the desk, shrouded in the mist of the candlelight, its features indistinct but its presence undeniable. The cowboy, heart racing, instinctively stepped in front of Hank, a guardian of both spirit and canine. "Now hold on there, partner," he called out, his voice straddling the line between bravery and bemusement. "We mean no harm, just seeking the tales this old house holds." "Audition." The apparition paused, the flickering candlelight illuminating an expression that seemed more puzzled than menacing. With the cowboy's reassuring tone and Hank's playful antics, tail wagging, a goofy grin on his face, the atmosphere shifted. What once felt like a palpable tension morphed into a shared moment of curiosity, as if both the living and the departed found common ground in their mutual quest for connection, laughter, and the stories that bind them across time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the dilapidated porch of the old Johnson homestead, the cowboy leaned back on the creaky steps, letting out a long sigh. Paws, his loyal German shepherd, sat at his feet, his ears perked up as he listened to the sounds of the haunting wind weaving through the cracks of the wood. They both knew it was time to say goodbye to this creaky, haunted abode that had become their playground and battleground against the ghosts of the past. Memories of wild chases, unexpected ghostly encounters, and laughter echoed in the cowboy's mind like a distant melody, bringing a bittersweet smile to his face. "Just one last sunset here, boy," he said softly, ruffling Paws's fur. The loyal dog wagged his tail, as if he understood that their adventures were winding down. The cowboy recalled their first encounter with the house's resident specter, a widow in a tattered yellow dress, her sorrowful presence a stark contrast to the playful antics of Paws. With a goofy grin, the dog had chased after her ghostly form, barking as if daring the spirit to play. Their chase had sent them both tumbling down the staircase, a spectacle of laughter and howls that filled the empty hall with warmth. It was in those moments that the cowboy discovered a bond deeper than he imagined possible. The house, despite its eerie facade, had been a witness to countless escapades, each one reinforcing the friendship between man and dog, a relationship forged over shared thrills and the occasional ghostly mishap that left them both with a tickle of fear and a chuckle to share. As the cowboy stood and dusted off his boots, he caught sight of Paws sniffing the air, his nose twitching as he picked up on a familiar scent, the lingering essence of adventure that had infused their time together in this haunted hideaway. "Remember that time we scared off old Gus, the ghostly ranch hand?" He chuckled, recalling how Paws had bravely stood his ground, barking fiercely at the spectral figure. The cowboy couldn't help but laugh at the image of his brave pup standing tall, while he himself had been cowering behind a rotting barrel. They had both learned something that day, that courage isn't about the absence of fear, but about facing it together. Those moments, mixed with a healthy dose of rural comedy, framed a tapestry of experiences that would forever remind them of their unbreakable bond. As twilight cloaked the house in shades of blue and gray, the cowboy felt the weight of nostalgia. He reached down to scratch behind Paws's ears, their shared understanding deepening in the silence. The German shepherd leaned into the cowboy's touch, his tail thumping rhythmically against the wooden floorboards. Each stroke felt like a promise that their adventures wouldn't end here, that they'd carry the spirit of their past into new places. "We might be leaving this place, but there's plenty more ghosts out there waiting for us," he said with a wink. Paws responded with a playful bark, his eyes shining with excitement, ready for whatever lay ahead. It wasn't just a house they were leaving behind. It was a chapter in their saga, a land filled with laughter and mystery. As the last rays of sunlight slipped beyond the hills, the cowboy and Paws stood side by side, casting long shadows on the worn step. This house, with its creaky floors and whispering walls, had sheltered secrets and laughter alike, but now it was time to turn the page. The cowboy took a deep breath, filled with the fresh scent of sagebrush, mingled with the fading memories of the past. With one last glance at the haunted homestead, he tipped his hat and said, "Thanks for the memories, partner." Paws barked in agreement, ready to follow his companion into the next adventure. The bond they shared had been tested in the fires of fear and laughter, and as they walked away, the cowboy knew that the heart of their journey was not defined by the ghosts they chased, but by the love that guided them onward. Well, folks, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting golden rays on the dusty path behind us, we finally pieced together the riddle of the haunted house. That old door, creaky as a pair of rusty hinges, just needed a bit of kindness to let its secrets spill out. And wouldn't you know it, all it took was one sweet whistle from old Duke to turn those spooky vibes into a rain of envelopes full of memories, not mischief. As Duke and I stood side by side, I felt that familiar warmth of gratitude wash over us. Our bond, the trust between a cowboy and his faithful German shepherd, had turned a haunted mystery into a tale of friendship and laughter. Who knew a whistling dog could bring out the sunshine even in the darkest of places? So, as we ride off into the sunset, remember this: the world can be as mysterious as a tumbleweed in a dust storm, but with the right partner by your side, every mystery can be solved, and every laugh shared is a blessing. Until next time, keep your spirits high and your hearts open, because adventure is just around the bend.